thank you all very much for being here. I'm often asked what it is that I do. It seems that lately I've been asked that more and more by my parents since I've become a father. What I do professionally is I get in way over my head. I'm often doing things that I'm completely and utterly unqualified to be doing, or working with people that I'm completely unqualified to be sitting amongst. And tonight is a perfect example of that, I don't mind saying. With me tonight are three giants in the music and recording industry. And it is an absolute pleasure for me to introduce them. Down at my very far right is Demo Castellon, and his list of credits: Timbaland, Madonna, LL Cool J, Rihanna, Fergie, Jay-Z. I don't know if you've heard of any of them. It's spectacular. Cuban-born, Toronto-based, is that correct?
Toronto-based now.
Nice.
From South Florida originally.
Oh, and I heard that the way you describe your where you actually live is seat 3A.
Yeah.
On
seat 3A.
On American Airlines. which is a good thing. Next over is Mr. Richard Chycki. You know the name because of the multiple Juno nominations and the Rush and Aerosmith records, the Mick Jagger records, the Simple Plan records, the Seal records, the Pink records. You got involved with some Christian rock bands. Skillet, number one is what last time I checked. So congratulations. Hits all over the world. Incredible resume, and also an incredible musician. We got to talk about Easy Sleazy too. I'm curious about that.
I know, huh?
Yeah. Also, he's been doing some really innovative things outside of what would be considered the norm of production and mixing. It has opened up an entire world of music to a new audience by doing so. To my direct right, Mr. Ian Terry, 400 recordings or more?
More.
50 film scores, 150 television shows, movie specials. Celine Dion, Diana Krall, David Bowie, Peter Frampton, Leonard Cohen, Oscar Peterson.
April Wine.
April Wine. Well done. Pardon me. A few years ago, he decided very generously to come back to Toronto and not only take over, but rewrite the curriculum for the Humber music production course. And so he and his team are really preparing, and properly preparing, I might add, the next generation of music producers and engineers coming out of Canada. So it is an absolute honor to be with these three gentlemen. I'm mostly a music producer as well, but I've spent the last 20 years, like I said, getting in over my head. And I've been lucky enough and fortunate enough to work with many, many great artists through producing music, through producing television and film. Yet, as I said, I'm constantly being asked to define what it is that I do. And what I like to say that I do is I help people tell stories. So that's really our agenda tonight, is I'm hoping that we might tell a few stories, share a few ideas, share a few processes. I'm curious, guys. I've sort of loosely defined what I do. How do you define what you do?
I come to these panels because they offer dinner. And any musician knows if there's free food, do it.
Yeah.
What do I do? Well, I've done a lot of things. I mean, I've been a columnist and a writer. I've had seat 3B.
B, right?
And I had never noticed you were there, though, but that's okay. Really what I do now is I'm still an engineer, occasionally produce John McLeod Rex Hotel Orchestra, which is a big band I co-produced with him. Other than that, I teach full-time at Humber now. They convinced me after I wrote some of the courses, and they said, come up and build a facility. So we built this great facility to teach in, which is a recording studio, a real recording studio like used to exist, and quickly dying, but it really was a forum in which we could show up-and-coming young musicians what the studios used to be like and what some of them still are, and how to use acoustic space to better their instrument sound when they need that space, when they don't need that space, when they need someone like Rick, when they need someone like me, when they need someone like Byron, when they can do it themselves, and how to do it themselves without getting into trouble to create some reasonably good sound and hopefully get market stuff out there so that they can actually make waves and be heard. So once I built that facility, they said I should stay and teach it,
And here you are.
and here I am. I tried to get them to change the weather in Toronto, but that didn't work, and so I came from sunny New Mexico back to Canada. I'm glad to be back in Canada, having been born and brought up in Canada. So.
Well, you were used to it. I mean, you were born in Montreal, and then you managed to escape that. But you know,
I
come
went
on,
to New
you got
York
used to it.
for 14 years, off and on. I did a lot of traveling, seat 3B, back and forth from New York to Montreal, to Toronto, to LA, Paris, London, Johannesburg, Buenos Aires, Singapore.
If you ever use that Google thing and put in Ian's name and look at all the destinations, it's impressive.
Thanks.
Toronto, born and raised, sir?
Me, yes. Toronto born and raised. Did my requisite sort of tenure in LA and then came back here. Partnered up with Alex Lifeson. We have a studio together, just in the outskirts of the city.
And how do you define what you do? Because you've worn many hats, but you're renowned worldwide as a mixer.
Majority of work I do is mixing, and a lot of it is I would define that as loosely as untangling the mess, because a lot of it is, especially with virtual tracks. I just finished mixing a progressive band from France. First song had 49 rhythm guitar tracks. 49 rhythm guitar tracks, and they were all, well, this is my G12H speaker recorded with this microphone, and this is the G12M speaker, and this is this amp with this, and there's such a huge combination. And to the artist's credit, he wasn't sure about which sounded best for the song, so he gave me everything, but the task of sifting through it is huge. So a lot of it is taking what an artist has in mind, coupled to say, if there's a record company, a lot of stuff's indie these days, but if there's a record company, listening to what they have in mind and putting together a package, basically trying to make everybody happy so that the artist feels they're well represented and the label feels that they have something that they can sell.
Nice.
And that's the majority of what I mean, I also do a lot of recording. The main artist I work with now is Rush. That's kind of, really haven't done a whole lot of recording outside that for a while. Recording, and I also do some production. Mostly bands. I'm either trying to develop younger bands, because that's something that when I was in a band was a little bit hard to get hold of people, so it's one of those things that it pissed me off when I was younger, so
Yeah.
I kind of stay open to
Yeah, that
looking-
notion of mentorship, I mean...
looking for young
yeah.
talent, because it's one of those things that when I was there, it was a tough climb, so I always sort of keep my eyes peeled. And I also do productions overseas, a band that I'd work with called Gothard in Switzerland, and they're rounding like triple platinum.
They're like hitting #1 in a bunch of countries,
Yeah,
right?
they're doing really well.
Well
Really
done.
So that's what I do.
And the gentleman down at the far right, I mean, sure, mixer, sure, engineer, sure, but remixer, musician, DJ, the whole deal.
Babysitter,
Oh yeah, yeah.
psychiatrist.
Oh yeah.
It really depends. Sometimes, I spent the past 3 weeks working with somebody who I'm not going to call out, but I was just sitting there going like, how much am I getting paid for this? Because it just ain't enough. It's funny you said that about virtual tracks. I mixed a song last week that had when I got it, it had 12 kicks, 10 snares, and 11 hi-hats. And then the producer came in, and I was just like, all right, so we got to do something about this. He's like, yeah. And added about another 8 kicks, 9 snares, and 11 hi-hats. I'm like, oh boy, when you leave, some of this stuff is getting deleted. But it all really depends. I've recently been doing a lot of, gone back into mixing. I took about a year off of mixing. I had a pretty good year, 2006, 2007, where I was fortunate enough to mix a lot of records. I had a lot of success. And the past 2 years, I've really been focusing more on my production, remixing.
Demolition Crew.
Demolition Crew, yeah, thank God. Michael Anthony's one of my co-producers. He's here tonight. So it's been, it's been fortunate. We've been real fortunate to be able to go back in and just make music. I think I like to think of what I do as just kind of people just paying me to have fun. So it's been great. But like I said, sometimes the hat I'm wearing is babysitter, psychiatrist, taxi driver.
Oh yeah.
There's
Yeah.
1,000 of them.
Well, and it's I like the way you put it. You've actually gotten back to making music. I find so often, so much is spoken about in the industry, around the industry, whether it's the demise of labels, the demise of artists, the demise of budgets, the cheap technology, which is the analog versus digital, summing in the box, out of everything, but no one generally seems to speak about actually making music and talking about music. And I'm curious about the inspiration around music. Just talk about for a second The Rain by Missy Elliott.
Oh well, that record inspired my whole career. When I heard that record, it changed my life. I remember sitting in the car and I was with a friend of mine, and it came on the radio, and I was sitting there going, "What is this? Like, what is this rhythm? What is this sound? What is she saying? How is she rapping like that?" I was just like, and then I literally walked in, and it was playing on MTV, and I just remember sitting there going like, "I need to work. I want to work with this woman," not knowing anything about her. It was her first song ever out. And sure enough, that was in 90. So probably like 4 years later, I got the chance. And it was, it's been a roller coaster since then.
Ian, same thing. When you decided to pick up and move to all those different countries and cities, those different hotels for all that time, sure, you were hired as producer, but you didn't know if you were going to be there as therapist or babysitter or...
Oh, therapist.
Yeah, almost certainly.
Absolutely therapist, most of the time. Some engineering. A lot of engineering.
A lot of engineering.
But a lot of therapist.
I mean, it isn't the easiest thing to always pick up and go. I mean, you're nomadic, as you sort of described to me earlier. But where was the inspiration to actually start this journey?
Start it was after a Bachelor of Arts at McGill. What do you do? Something worthwhile, hopefully. And it was late 60s, and it was time to do music. I mean, we just had to do music. I had to have music, and you can sit at home and spin the turntable and listen to it, or you can actually go out there and participate in it, and that's way more exciting. So I did that. I picked up a guitar. A minor was my favorite chord because I could play that one. And then I went to bar chords, and I said, well, this is way too difficult, and I sold that guitar. And only several years later I figured out why it was difficult, because the difference between the strings and fretboard was about this much, as it was a $35 guitar. Far easier to play Miles guitars than that one. Took up drums because that was loud and noisy. And I think I got paid $15 professionally as a musician. Decided maybe that wasn't my career, and managed to get into a studio as it was first opening in 1969. Went to Eastman School of Music for a little bit with Phil Ramone, David Green, Neil Muncy, Jack Richardson, all those old guys.
Good class.
And that was inspirational. And one thing I remember Phil Ramone saying was, you may not understand what I'm saying, but somewhere down the line you're going to go, oh, that's what he meant. And that still happens. And that's what's so exciting. And I told students yesterday, every time I do a recording, it's different. Every time there's a trio, quartet, quintet, solo artist, whatever it is, it's never the same. Mm-hmm. And that's what's exciting. It keeps the juices going, and you never know what you're going to get. And you can have the same board, the same instruments, and you change a tune or change the musicians, and it's totally different. How exciting is that? And you get paid for it. I mean, this is vacation all the time.
Well put. What's your process for getting up in the morning, there, Rich?
My process? Well, I have a studio in the city with Al. I have one up at my house as well. So depending on what project I'm working on, I either can fall out of bed and fall into the studio, or go in. I mean, a lot of my process is that I'll get an artist project will come in. I mean, it's somewhat of a sterile process where you get there's a bunch of artists that are in queue, mm-hmm. and just come in, and I'm mixing this today. Come in and mix anywhere between a single and either a portion of a CD or an entire project, and client feedback.
And how do you determine, because all of you must get countless little silver discs or emails or links going, check this out, check out my MP3, check out my demo. Mm-hmm. How do you determine that?
Which project I'll take?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of stuff I guess from record companies. So you build up a rapport with labels or with managers, and I'll get a call to. I just say as an example, I recently did a project with this band Skillet, and management just called me and said, "Listen, we're doing this." It was a Tuesday. He said, "Fly to Chicago Thursday, and record the band. We're doing 8 songs live off the floor." So it was just hop on the plane.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, hop on
Sweet.
the plane, go get it done,
There-
live off the floor, bring it back, brought it back to the studio mixed.
There was at least 4 or 5 points in that what you just said that strike me as interesting. 1, I think you said label. 2, management. 3, live off the floor. These are all things that kind of seem to be like they're kind of like almost old school terms these days.
Well, live off the floor, it just, I think by saying live off the floor means that you have the ability to play live
Yeah.
and sound good.
Which
This-
seems
this
to
band-
not
this-
be a current notion, with all due respect to some of the people we work with.
Well, I don't think it's a function of, I don't think it's a function of new school and old school. I was speaking with Ian earlier, and he was just saying that some of the musicianship that he sees going through the school is just stellar. So I can't really see that it's something that, oh, you're old, you must be able to play live off the floor. That's just, that's, I mean, there's also the comedy thing that, any keyboard player under 40 that only knows the start button. That idea, it's like, well, if you're under 40, you can't play piano. Do you know what I mean? That's the sort of the thing. I think that it's a personal thing. I don't think it's age driven. I think it's a personal thing of, I've been really fortunate that some of the bands that I work with, just to watch them play is unbelievable, because you go through, say, the pre-production process, then you decide, let's record it this way. And you just switch over from being in pre-pro, and all of a sudden you're recording an album, and everyone's playing. It's great, because it's really for all the stuff that, the stereotypical stuff that you hear about music, it's about emotion, it's about this, it's about that, As an engineer, I love stuff to sound good, because I remember when I was a kid and my brother got a new stereo and it would rip my face off and it sounded great. But there was the adrenaline that comes with it sounding great. And I think that that's something that stuck. There's no reason that you have to have a band that sounds crappy. You can do a good job. It's okay to do a good job. You don't have to say, wow, let's make this band sound crappy. You can do a good job. You know what? The players can play well. There's no reason to not do that. And write great songs.
And in tune.
And in tune.
Wow.
No auto-tune.
What a
I worked with a
concept.
singer that used no auto-tune. I could not believe it. I couldn't believe it. This guy came out, he would just blast. I did a track with Pink. She came out, one take, sang it, went. She did 2 more after that. First one was absolutely silly. Amazing.
Yeah.
No auto-tune, no nothing. The one thing that I love about technology is that it takes something and it makes a great thing greater. And the thing that is scary about technology is when it's a crutch. That's when it kind of starts to be, you can't sing a major scale, we'll draw it for you.
Right.
That's when it kind of starts to be a weird thing, So that's what my day sort of consists of, is a combination of really great players and just trying to make it sound good.
See, it's interesting, when you talk to people who want to get into production, and it comes up a lot. I get a chance to meet a lot of younger producers, and I'm sure all of you do. There's invariably this struggle. There's this weird thing where they feel they have to take on the acts or try to produce acts that maybe, frankly, are just not worth producing, or just do not have, haven't maybe put in the time, or haven't matured enough fully. But it's interesting because, as you say, we have the technology to create something out of almost anything. And I know you, sir, are very much, Demo, you're very much against auto-tune, if you can avoid it.
Oh, completely. I've gotten in serious arguments with artists that could actually sing. I need that. No, you don't. Oh, yes, I need that. Come on, you're a singer. You're supposed to sing, right? That's what you're getting paid for. And it's like, man, it's one of those things that when I work with a singer, I actually bring it to the forefront right away. Like, I don't do auto-tune. I don't tune. That's not what I do. If you want that done, you got to do it outside of me, because I'm not doing it. I mean, I have the plugin, but just to have it, so I could take it off when my sessions open up, so I could see what the big fuss is. But it's and it's crazy. I've had artists that I work with gone and take the sessions that I've done and go and tune them after the fact, and be like, "See, look how good it sounds." I'm like, "It sounds the same. The only thing you did now is you totally now sound like everybody else."
Yes.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
yeah, to me, it's death to auto-tune. I hate it. And Terrace is the worst.
Which I got, I mean, coming from your background, a lot of pop, a lot of hip hop, R&B. I mean, it's a staple. I mean, it's even when you hear it all over everything, including Nickelback tracks. I mean, it's a staple. Is that something that when you guys are working on projects, because you're conscious of making hits, for lack of a better term, so to speak, do you have to consider?
My biggest collaborator is Timbaland, and I've done a lot of my success with me. I mean, I just have a good. Me and him are like Batman and Robin. I like to think we just gel together really well. And I think what's gelled us so well over the years is the fact that he's always going one way and I'm always going the other. So he'll be like, "Oh, we got to do this," and I'll be like, "No, we don't got to do that." And it's been like that, especially the past 2 years with the rise of autotune. He's been like, "Well, we can try to use it this way." I'm like, "Well, we can try not to use it that way and try to actually do something else." And it's a never-ending battle, right? We just go back and forth, and that's been something that's kept us together, but something that's definitely, there's been a lot of barking in the studio because of that.
And process is an interesting thing in general with this. I mean, I love that Missy Elliott is one of your touch points for getting into the industry. Because, when you talk to guys, it's like, oh, the Beatles, or in my case, it was like the Jesus and Mary chain or New Order or something. And I love that you maybe didn't ever have to deal with aligning tape. Or maybe you did, and you didn't ever have to really wonder if things were going to run out of sync, because.
No, I did. I had those.
Okay,
I started
fair
off. We were still locking. We were still doing stuff to tape when I was going.
But because that process, I find that process, because that's almost a given now. Like, a long time back, like 15 years ago, you get the tennis elbow from the Akai 1000s because you're just trying to get those loops to just gel, and now you just jam 5 loops into Ableton and they sync. So there's a whole bunch of process stuff that I feel has changed immensely. But so then to your point, you have experienced a lot of that. I'm curious with all three of you, how have your processes changed as technology has emerged?
Mine has changed. The more stuff that comes out. I was funny because I was having a conversation with Fady about to say, I told Fady, I'm pretty sure there's nobody that owns more plugins than I do. I probably have every plugin ever, and I use the same 3 that I've used for the same 10 years. It's the same 3 plugins.
Okay.
To me, I know I might get shot by some of the manufacturers they ever see this, but I can't hear the difference. I really can't. They say, yeah, this one's great, they all do the same thing for me. So my process really has changed because now I try to get out of the box any second that I can get out of the box. Nice. And that even goes with if it's program stuff, I'm sending it back out, remiking it, doing something, just taking it out of there. Because to me, if you're in the box, we're all in there, right? So at some point, we're all going to hit the same boundaries. If we use, no matter what we use, the same VSTs, eventually we're all in the same, we're just in the same box, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, I challenge everybody. I'm just like, whatever you can, man, just get it out. Forget the summing bus, do whatever you can, take it back out, remic it, do something. Play it live. I haven't even been programming. Most of the stuff I've been doing lately is just, I'll go in there and just play it live, And people are like, you do that? Yeah, no, I do that. Just go back to miking, do stuff that actually what gave us a sound. That's my thing right now. It's just trying to go back to sound, to sonics, trying to do stuff that, some people might be like, that sounds like shit. Yeah, but it sounds different. It might not be properly done, but you can't get that sound.
Yeah, remember when distorted drums, or distortion in general was not your friend? That wasn't that long ago, and now it's everyone's friend.
Yeah.
I get the feeling, Mr. Chycki, you agree that you get it out, make your own sound.
I mean, I do a lot of mixing within Pro Tools.
Oh.
But at the same time, I'm not married to any one method or technology at all, because I have a tendency to not use my eyes when I'm mixing. The latest Rush thing that Caravan that was mixed, we mixed that on an SSL 4072 because producer felt that it was the right tool for the job, and it was the right tool for the job because it's one of those things that when it was done, the mix came together in about 2.5 hours, and it was just yeah, that's right. And it's one of the great things. One of the great things is that with there being so much technology available, is that there's so many options. And one of the worst things about there being so much technology is that there's so many options, right? Because you end up spinning around, and you know, like I can't tell you how many guitar players that I see. They come in with their Fujitsu carburetor box, and they're just like, and they're doing all of their twiddling and twiddling and twiddling, and you go, what kind of sound you're looking for? And they're going, and they'll just explain. You go, oh, this into the amp. They go, dude, that's it.
Yeah.
Right tool for the right job.
Yeah, right tool
And
for the
I
right
think
job.
a lot of technology comes from looking at the tools that are available, and learning what tool does what job. You know, and let's say if there's a set of plugins that work right,
Yeah.
fantastic. You know, if there's a piece of hardware that's right, that's great. But it's the education process of learning what's right.
Boy, that's a great
Yeah, amen.
segue. That's a great
That's
segue.
perfect.
It's the process of learning what
Yeah.
is the right thing to use. To sit down and say, you know, I want this vocal sound that has all this air, and you take this, you know, you take the mic and you go hook it all up, and you go, it's not quite right, and you know, it's just, well, I know that's an original C12, and you jam in that C12, and you go, I don't have to do anything to this. This is right. Exactly. And I think that's the biggest thing to do is to find for what I do. In the technical part of it is to get the right tool for the right job.
And how does one educate a new, group of technologically savvy students?
First
that
thing you
maybe
do
don't
is you
know?
get the earbuds out of their ears. That's the first thing you do. You get the earbuds out of the ears, and then you pay them MP3s. And you pay them MP3s at about 28. And then you take it up, and you get it to 128. And they're going, that's sounding pretty good. And you get it up to 360, and they say it sound even better. Then you play the WAV file, and they go, wow, cymbals. Wow, stereo. Everyone knows that MP3s are mono, right? MP3 technology is a mono technology. They take a stereo file, they put it in mono, they perceptually encode it, they do a sum difference just like Dolby did way back in the old days. And the sum difference gives you the stereo. Kind of, sort of, not quite. So that's the first thing that I do with them. And the second thing that I do with them is, I don't go in the box. I'm not in the box. I'm an old guy. We didn't have boxes back then. And it sounded pretty good. Some things sound better today. But I use the box, but I'm not in the box. I won't mix in the box. Well, give me 10 grand, I'll mix in the box. Maybe. But under protest. No, I got to get it out and into the analog domain and mix it there. It's music, and music is emotion. And if the motion doesn't come across, who cares?
And so, you've got a curriculum that's teaching these probably the absolute basics and the fundamentals, and then someone's kind of going, why do I need to know that? I can have this sort of automatically done in my little $200 DAW.
Yeah,
how do you argue that?
Well, we really don't teach musicians engineering. That's the first thing. Musicians don't want to know about engineering. Many musicians don't want to know about engineering, especially at that age. They're performers. They want to perform. That's why they're in that school. It's a jazz-based studies program, but it doesn't mean they play jazz. They just learn jazz harmony structures and learn how to improvise. That's the biggest thing. And 60% of the students, when they get away from that study program, they're playing rap, country, bluegrass, hard metal, grunge, alternative, progressive. What I don't even know what alternative progressive is, but it's different. So they're just doing that, and so we teach them production values. This sounds good. This sounds bad. This sounds good. This sounds bad. Is bad good? Could be. Depends. Is good bad? Could be. It depends. And can I tell stories?
Please, that's why we're here.
I gave the analogy or the story that I was working with a jubilation choir, 54-piece choir and a regular band. And the first time I worked with this group, I've done about 8 albums with them, but the first time I worked with the group, I said, I'm going to make this sound good. Like, this is going to be, I mean, you got 54 singers and they're rocking, and you got organ and piano and bass and drums and guitar, and this is just happening. So I'm going to make it sound good, like the bass drum is going to be, and the bass is going to be big, and the organ's going to be wailing, and the singers are going to be doing, and I made it. It sounded great. Sounded great. Finished mixing the record. Producer was happy. Sounded great. I listened to it at home and I went, it sounds great, but I'm not dancing. And so I said to the producer, I said, it sounds great. And he says, yeah, you did a great job. I said, but I'm not dancing. Producer was black. And he says, yeah, I wasn't dancing either, but it sounds great. And I went, I'll tell you what, I'll remix it for free. You take your choice. So I made it sound bad. I crammed the choir into almost mono. The instruments I put in the back, or as we say in New York, we put them in reverb and shipped them to Poughkeepsie, because they're unimportant. And the thing rocked, because the singers rocked. And so we got up, as soon as you listen to that thing, you got to get up and start moving.
Yeah.
And that's the emotion, and that's the record. So sometimes good is bad and bad is good. You can't be a purist. Well, some can. I can't be a purist when the tune isn't rocking for me. And that's why I got in the business, because music rocks me. And when it doesn't, bye.
Wow. Well, I like this this part of the evening. The story evening is what I've been kind of waiting for.
Well, I'm good at stories.
Oh, yeah.
I got lots of stuff.
Ian, which one did the producer take? The good one or the bad one?
I took the bad one.
Yeah.
Because it rocked.
Because it was the good one.
Because
Good
he
one.
got up and started to move. And when his butt was moving, he was happy.
He was happy.
Tell me about tracking Madonna.
Oh, that was something. That's for sure. It was one of those moments when I sat there and I was just like, man, does it get any better than this? Like, wow, I'm here with Madonna, it's like an icon. I'm looking like, okay, knock that one off the list, and I don't think there's anyone higher than that for me. I think this is it. Yeah, my impression when she first walked into the room, usually when I work with an artist I've never worked before, I'm just very, I started off in the studio being an assistant, so I was always kind of knew how to be a fly on the wall, kind of stay in the background and watch. And I still take that approach working with new artists that I've never worked with before. And I did that with her. I just watched her, and I just watched her presence, and I was just in awe. You just really, being in her presence, you realize, okay, this is why this woman is who she is and how she's gotten here. I mean, she just commands your presence. and I think of her more like Phil Jackson, like, okay, you got to come and play, because she's pulling it out of you, and she definitely, you can't have a bad day with her, that's for sure, because she will definitely let you know that you're messing up her day, and that is not the kind of day you want to have. But for the most part, yeah, it was fantastic. We did a bunch of records for her last album, and then I did some stuff for her her greatest hits, and incredible experience, a wonderful woman. It's a real treat. Real treat.
It's nice to hear, because you always, everyone's been, tries to tear down the icons. Oh, they were horrible. They couldn't sing. They couldn't do any of these things, and
No, she's the real deal. I was actually really, really impressed, because I figured by now her voice would have started going the opposite direction. And no, she she's very much, she warms up, she warms down, which nowadays singers just get in, they go right into the booth. I'm like, don't you want to warm up? They're like, what do you mean? Vocal lessons, never did that? No. But no, she warms up, warms down, very good about her voice. she's very particular about what she chooses for notes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But she'll keep going till she hits them.
Yeah.
She's very aware of key, what key works for her, what doesn't. Well, you would think after 20 albums you would know that, but so yeah, she's
the real deal.
She's the real deal. Yeah,
Nice.
she's the real deal.
Rich, 2000, Jaded,
Yeah.
Aerosmith. First of all, wow.
Yeah.
One of their biggest singles ever. Their biggest single in a decade. Probably more, right?
Yeah, that's good.
And you were the man. You were the man. Come on, I mean, tell us a little bit about that.
You know, funny that you mentioned when you use the term icon. There's you start to. I think that the only difference from I guess my perspective would be from what Demo was saying and what you were saying is they're really like everybody else, except I think that everybody around them is that the expectations are that you deliver now, and there are no mistakes. I.e., if Steven Tyler wants to scream at the top of his voice, you better have a secondary mic there, because when he distorts the crap out of the first one, he's going to say, I want to use that, and you better have a good take.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, I think that's the only, for me, with any of the artists that I've worked with, that's the only difference that I've seen, is that the preparation, which I guess that comes with professionalism. You have to be prepared. You have to be prepared for sort of all contingencies. And, you know, the funny thing is, when I went into starting to work with a lot of these artists, I really didn't know a whole lot of what to expect, and I just found that one example is that they all the artists sound like the records. Steven Tyler, when he sings, first time I recorded him, when he started singing, it's just, he sounds like every record I've ever heard. He sounds like Dude Looks Like a He just sounds like that.
Did it freak you out?
Well, it freaked me out because everything he would sing sounded great.
Yeah.
But just, it was kind of, it's whether he was going to do his wow, wow, or, some sort of skittle sort of riff or something like that. It was all different, and it was just how you piece the stuff together. I want that big scream going into the guitar solo, or, the beginning of this guitar solo is pretty important. Steven's going to drop out sooner, so let's find something where he dropped out sooner. But everything they sing, all of these artists, Mick Jagger, he clicks on the voice. It's like a switch. The energy is like a switch. He goes into full stage mode when the red light goes on. Full stage mode. All the moves while he's singing. It stops, and I think I'd like to come in and listen to that. It's like a switch. But when it's on, it's just like, it's the same vibe as watching the Stones. It's like watching the Stones.
Yeah.
And then switches off. The only thing is that everything has to be prepared. Headphone mix has to be right. Everything. There's no screwing around. It's just everything's got to be ready to go. That's the only thing that I found. And if you deliver that to anyways, if you deliver that to all your artists, it really doesn't make a difference. So if you.
I had an artist say to me once that I was producing this artist, can remain nameless, and she said to me, she said, we better find people that are efficient because we don't have the time for anything else.
Well
Which
put.
just basically means you got to have that backup mic. And what do you mean it wasn't in record?
Yeah.
That's you're out.
Yep.
You're gone. Next record is somebody else.
And with all the DAWs in use, there's no.
No excuse.
But in my days, it was tape. But
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the headphone mix. That headphone mix, I saw her tear into my assistant, man, when that headphone mix wasn't right.
Yeah, man, it's got to be right.
Because he had worked with her before, so she completely ripped into him. I had no idea. I was sitting there. He was like, it's funny because Spike Stin, who actually mixed the other half of the record, called me and said, dude, make sure that headphone mix. And he gave me all the specs, which I thought was completely brilliant of him. Told me every single thing that he was doing to make sure. He's like, this thing has to be perfect. So.
Wow.
The assistant knew it, set it up, and boy, she tore into him. I felt bad for the kid. I was just like, okay, yeah, that headphone mix was crucial. But once we got that rolling,
But he won't make that
fantastic.
mistake again.
No. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. He got it together.
Let's talk about how we earn money, because that has changed so much, and I'm sure that's something doesn't matter whether you are professional producer, musician, engineer. a semi-professional or you're a hobbyist, I think that at some point in your career or in your life, in your artistic life, you're going to say, should I charge for this? And what do I charge for this? And how do I charge for this? And it has just changed so dramatically over the last 10 years. I don't know if it has as significantly for you guys as I've seen within the various things I do, but I mean dramatically is the only way I can put it.
I have a few royalty complaints I'd like to make.
Oh yeah.
What was the term? I heard this just the other day. No, there's a difference between libel and slander in Canada. So go ahead. Have you seen the industry change? And I don't want to get into the whole down with labels, up with labels thing, but
It's not a label thing.
Yeah.
The downloading, bands are selling fewer records overall. I mean, there's exceptions. There's records
Yeah.
that explode.
sure.
It's a lot more extreme. There's a lot of artists that would sell, a healthy amount of records, and now it's kind of a nominal amount, and they supplement it with extra touring. From what the three of us do, I don't think that the touring does a whole lot unless we're on the road with the band.
Yeah.
Right? So, in that would be sort of the main impact. The main impact is in royalties. I wasn't doing a label slag. It's more the issue of it was more of a download slag.
Fair enough.
So
Yeah, I'm with beating down the download thing. It's a little way too out of control, I think. But at this point, it is what it is. I like to think now that the industry is kind of going. It's not going to a golden period. It's like the dark ages right now, but something is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years that's going to completely revolutionize what we're doing. And I think the people that are on the forefront of that are going to be okay, and we're going to get a new golden age. Maybe it won't be the same we won't make the same, that our finances won't be the same as it was 10 years ago, but I think it'll be healthy where people can make a good living. I think one of the key issues that's happening, especially I see with a lot of young engineers, is they don't really know what their worth is. And some of them really don't have the same worth as those that are trained, that are professionally trained and know what they're doing. And they're killing those guys. They're killing the guys that are actually professionals that know what they're doing. Because some of these kids will go in and, I'll mix your record for $100. You're looking at the guy who actually has credits, and it's like he's already cutting his rate down. He's at, 1,000, 2,000, whatever he's at. And the client's going, well, I could work with the kid for $100. You know what I mean? It's like, it's that kind of stuff that I think has hurt really engineers and mixers per se.
Is that a bit of an effect of cheaper and more accessible technology?
It is. I mean, a lot of guys are doing. I'm really blown away by how many records are being done at home now. It's like a lot. Everything I'm getting, every single thing at one point or another, is done at home. Where before it was like we still went into the studio. People were still going in. They were still cutting at least drums and bass. I mean, I'm getting guys now that are sending me strings and stuff that are cut in their living room. It's like, where'd you record this? Oh, I did it by myself, stacked myself 40 times. I'm like, oh, dude. He's like, yeah, what do you think? Oh, man, it's going to be a long day,
Is there still a place for these big studios? I mean, because, this city has seen a ton of them go.
Yeah.
And a number of them are actually coming up. And I wonder, I wish them really well, and I'm sure they'll do very well. They're good people, but it seems like a very interesting time to be building a big studio. Is there still a place in our process for big studios?
I think so. I think that, it's going to come down to, there's going to be people that are just going to be, it's going to be like boutique, let's say, There's still going to be people that want that sounds, and that you're not going to, I know home technology is growing and all this, but there's no way, and I'm willing to bet anything, that you're never going to be able to achieve the same sound, the same performance. It's just not going to happen. I don't care how far the technology gets. It's just not going to happen. So I don't think studios are, a lot of them are going to drop, but I still think the key ones that are still, have good clientele, have great facility, have great techs, keep their stuff up to par, I still think they're going to be around.
It's a tool.
Absolutely.
It's a tool, and it's a tool that needs to be used, and that's, I've sort of taken that on to show young musicians, certainly there's an argument in this town that a lot of the legit musicians, legit in the, not necessarily rock and rollers, but those who have had some background in education in it. I hesitate to use the word legit, but it's the only way I know how to describe it. Certainly, I've taken on the challenge to teach them what a big studio is and how to use it, what it's worth, when not to use it, when you don't have to use it, and when you really should be using it. But at least have the education to understand. Like I say, get the earbuds out of the ears and have them listen to something that sounds good. It doesn't have to be a $100,000 monitoring system, but it needs to be a $10,000 monitoring system so that they know that this is what's good and this is what represents your art well. And if you don't want it to sound like that, at least make a conscious decision. I don't want it to sound like that. That my artistic expression is going to be this way. It's not going to be that way. But I know that exists. And it's not for me. Great. At least if you make a conscious decision, an intelligent, educated decision, then you are creating your art with all the tools that are available to you. You're using the ones you want to use. But if you don't know it's available, how can you possibly use it? So people say, well, why'd you build a $2 million studio? It's actually 2 studios. But why did you do that for teaching musicians who aren't engineers? I said, well, because the musicians are going to make the choices. They're the ones that are going to direct what's going to happen. Not today, not tomorrow, but in 10 years, these guys are going to be making the decisions for at least 40 to 50% of what goes on in Toronto for sure, and Canada possibly. So let them have the knowledge that those tools are available if they need to use them and how to use them properly. When do they need Rick? When do they need me? When can they do it at home?
Yeah.
How do they do it at home? Any manufacturers here
Oh, maybe.
other than SSL? Anybody else? When to use a cheaper microphone and when to use an expensive microphone, even though they look the same. What's the difference between a $250 mic and a $2,600 mic? $250 mic's great on some things, and the $2,600 mic is great on other things. So be able to make that choice and realize that. When do you want to use I shouldn't say names, but when do you want to use a cheaper mic preamp? And when do you want to use a $3,000 mic preamp? There is a choice to be made, and you have to understand what the result is. So we put them in a great studio that's got great console. We happen to have a duality, a $200,000 mic locker. Hey, in a beautiful room, which has got great acoustics. It's fabulous. I do big bands in there with no isolation, and it sounds great. And so they know what a good one sounds like and they know what a bad one sounds like. So they can say, okay, I have $5,000 to do my record. So I'm going to take $1,000 and I'm going to give it to Rick and he's going to go record this there. Can we get it for that, Rick? Well, maybe it's $1,500. Okay, $1,500. I don't know what your price is, but whatever it is.
Bag of chips.
Yeah, there you go, bag of chips. And then, we're running out of money because there's only $3,500 left. What are we going to do with the $3,500? Well, I'm going to rent a good thing at Long and never get paid, and then I'm going to rent this stuff, and I'm going to go home and I'm going to play my guitar 6 hours a day, 12 hours, 7 days a week, and I'm going to get the parts right. Great. And then they're going to take it over to you and going to mix it. And it's going to sound like 43 guitars. But, he's going to do that. But at least they know to go to him to mix it.
Have your students, your former students, come back to you and said, "My God, you spoiled us. I went out to the real world and I recorded at Studio XYZ, or I bought it in my box, and it didn't sound like what I'm used to, what you've opened my eyes to." Has that come up?
Not yet, but that's a possibility.
It's going to.
It's a possibility, yeah. But at least they know.
Yeah.
At least they know. And we had Fady come in and do a demo of bus summing into the box and out of the box. Yeah. And all the students went, "What a great mix." No, that's in the box. Oh, okay. Sounds great. And then he put it out of the box and they went, "My gosh, it's twice as wide, twice as deep, twice as high, and seems to be louder, even though we know the meters and the SPL meter are not reading louder.
Right.
So they're becoming aware of these things, and we're not training engineers. This is not an engineering school. This is just training musicians to be aware of what the technology that's available to them for $1,200 if you want to buy a Mac Pro and a little bit of software, and how to use that technology when the limitation is. Digital is bad. Everyone should know that. Digital is bad, but it's sometimes acceptable. And it gives you ability to do things that you could never do before. And that's great, that's fabulous. But understand that every time you move something in the box, you're actually quantizing. Because the numbers, there's not enough numbers in there, and you're hitting it in between, and you're going to be quantizing. Then you got to add dither because it's going, yeah, you can't hear it very well, but it's there. And do 40 of them, 43 guitars, and you're going to have tick, 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 and it's going to be gone. So, you got to understand that digital is bad and digital is good, and how to use that medium so that you can maximize the sound quality and get that emotion across to the listener. I mean, that's all it counts, isn't it? A great mix never made a hit. A great tune made a hit.
Yeah.
A great mix can help the hit be transferring emotion to the listener, that's all.
Can I add something?
Please.
I would bet, talking about tools, I bet you we could take an 808, give it to Demo, give it to Mike, and I bet you these guys could crank out a song, sing it in the room with a beat, and I bet you could sit down and go, that's a great song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's it. Nothing else.
That's right.
Nothing else.
Absolutely. And
They
for
could crank it up. Now here, what's over here is all the equipment that, this is the equipment that when I started in studios, I remember seeing a studio owner cut a 7-figure check for a console.
Wow.
7-figure check for a console, and the technology is here. So it should technically be impossible for anybody to make a crappy sounding record.
Yep.
Because the equipment's within the realm, it's within the reach of, we'll say, almost everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the reach of almost everybody. The technology is available that's really, really high end.
Mm-hmm.
So really what it comes down to, again, the good thing is we were talking about the $200 DAW. The greatest thing about all of this stuff that's been going on is that it levels the playing field. It's like, do you remember seeing any of the photos from the 60s where the engineers and studios had lab coats on? You ever see those?
Yes.
And it's kind of funny, but at the time it was like a real hocus pocus, It's like,
Yeah.
Columbia.
my performance is turning, it just shows up on this tape. It's magic. There was a mysticism. And this development in technology, as technology trickles down, all the mysticism, well, a lot of it's going away. Now it's just coming down to knowledge. How do you make something sound good? I got to tell you, there's so much amazing technology out there, and some of the stuff that I get in is so terribly recorded. Terrible.
Yeah.
That you go, how's it possible? It's not the technology. It's who's pressing the buttons.
Fair enough.
And that is really the core of it, is
Oh yeah.
learn to use these. You sit down, you can make a vocal sound great with 3 plugins over and over again. Perfect. He does it because he knows what he's doing. It's not the plugin. It doesn't matter what the plugin
I
is.
think that's the key. He knows
Doesn't
what he's
matter.
doing.
Knows what he's doing. Just like one of these things. I mean, I saw Neil Peart. We tracked a song. He played a 5-piece kit. We'd rip down the drums. He says, "No, let's do one more." One of the songs on the record is 3 mics on the drums and a 5-piece kit. And you listen to it, it sounds different, but it doesn't sound a whole lot different.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great drummer. Well, that's because he has his tool. He sits down. He can play. You can give him a fun beat kit. I got this $79 kit from Sears, and he kills it.
And he kills it.
He kills it. It sounds great.
Kills
It's hilarious. He'll sit and he'll play on something. He'll play on like road cases and stuff, and just, and you listen to this and you go, "How are you doing that?" And it's ridiculous. He always sounds great because he's great at his craft and he knows what he's doing from a musician's point of view. But that law applies to him, to me, to you, and to everybody else. It's the same thing.
Absolutely.
The tools are available, Now it's just like, okay, well, it's there. Now learn how to use it. And that's the part that it's really hard to translate. There's a process to translating. You know, how do you make 10 things that have similar frequencies? I want to hear all of them. How do you do that? You know, how do you do it? And it's like, great, okay, so sure, we could use our, our favorite plug-in, we could use our favorite EQ, we could do whatever we want. But the question still is, how do you do it?
Yeah.
You know,
The
you
knowledge
could, you
is
can
the
draw it on a screen if you like, that works. You could twiddle some buttons, that also works. But the same question will apply to everybody. How do you do it? What's the right tool? Is it this mic? You know, is it my old Tube 47? What is it that's going to do?
Right.
Works for me.
Yeah.
Off soapbox, sorry.
No,
No, it's
hey,
good.
it's a good,
Good.
it's a good soapbox you're on. I want to do a little left turn here, and I want to talk a little bit about the other things that are related to what we do, but are a little bit different. So it's often DJs become remixers, remixers become producers, just as one example. And I'm actually going to start with you, Richard. You don't mind? You helped launch something, and I'm doing this epic build-up that I think has brought not only music appreciation to millions of people who, at best, had a casual interest in it, but appreciation of classic music, classic rock music and pop music. And what that is you have been responsible for doing a number of the mixes for the Guitar Hero and Rock Band franchises. It is incredible how much interest classic rock has. Kids have classic rock, old school pop.
It's a huge,
Hip-hop,
huge
you know?
market. It's reacquainted a lot
coming
of
back.
kids with guitar, I guess, guitar-oriented music, Guitar Hero music.
Yeah. But can you talk about how, just, I mean, we could spend hours on this, I'm sure, but can you talk about how, first of all, how you got engaged in that, and second, a bit of the process, because it seems like a deep process.
It's the only thing that makes it complex is the fact that it's an emulation of the original mix, right? It's an emulation of the original mix. So there's very definitive boundaries that aren't open to interpretation. Right. They want the same. You want the same reverbs. You want everything the same as the original. And essentially, what it is it's a series of stem mixes. So you get the multi-track, you break it out, and you have to EQ. You have to think old. Right, everything you have to think old. So the whole idea of smashing the bus compressor, all that stuff, that just goes away, and you have to just. My test
You
is.
just called me.
Yeah, my test is to take the original mix and I just drop in pieces.
Yeah.
And I go back and forth until I can't tell anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well done.
So that's really, so a lot of stuff I do in because of the complexity of the stems. A lot of it is done within Pro Tools with some outboard gear. So it's completely possible to emulate old stuff with newer technology. It's completely possible to do it. It's just you have to use these.
Yeah.
And you have to know, I don't need to have my distressor slamming into the red. You can't do that with some of the older stuff. Maybe some old Zeppelin.
What's the
drum
approval
overheads.
process around all of that?
What's the what?
Sorry, the approval process. I mean, you get these tracks, you stem them out, you send them back.
Well, the approval
Activision?
process is actually fairly simple, because if it doesn't sound like the original, I can't let it out. Right? So the stems are, I have the stems, but I have the stems running, and they all mix down, and I'm listening to my mix of the stems.
Yeah.
So I'll be doing my adjustments
So
separately.
you're the approval process. I mean, you
Well,
don't think you're ever going to get any.
I always send it. I send it to the senior music supervisor at either for Activision or for the guys that do Rock Band as well, and I'll send it to them. I'll send it to the artist, and just to make sure everybody's happy, right?
Oh, yeah. Wow. That had to be one of the more daunting things that you've done. I would think. Just your initial several, you must think, my God, I'm trying to recreate something that is etched into millions and millions of souls and brains.
No, it's a challenge. It's great.
Yeah.
That's what's awesome about it, is the fact that it already exists, and it's actually a great education process because, you can listen to an old record and you go, how'd they do this?
Yeah.
But by the time you're done, you have the exact details of what the mix process was, because I have the multi-tracks, right? So you have the multi-tracks and they're EQ'd or whatever, in whatever fashion they're in. And having said that, some of the stuff is you listen to it and you go, some of the Rush stuff that I've done, you just turn it up and you go, oh, well, the guitars are just up and ready to go, which is a testament to the way they're recorded.
Yeah.
They're recorded great.
Yeah,
So it wasn't like, hey, wow, we'll fix it in the mix. Some of the stuff, I'd turn it up and, shit, there's cameras on. No, I did a lot of work on those guitars. There's
Tons of work.
No, but in reality, a lot of stuff, the recordings of the guitars were fantastic. Just turn them up and you go, you could hear there's plate reverb, and it's just analyzing what the plate was. It's just steps.
Any surprises? Was there anything in all these multi-tracks that you picked apart and you went, holy shit, I didn't think that was
There is a lot of great. There's a lot of great comedy on some of the stuff that's muted. Say during guitar solos, you hear there's some stuff with stuff being said that's on there. There's a lot of outtakes. So it's great to hear outtakes that alternate pieces.
Yeah.
Alternate pieces. So sometime I'll have a run of an entire master, so I'll hear bits on an analog master. There'll be like the last 30 seconds of an outtake. Something
What a
that's really
treat,
great.
man. What a treat.
So it's great. I mean, it's great
awesome.
to listen to classic stuff that's a piece of history, right?
Yeah, incredible.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, I want to turn it over to you guys a little bit. I'm curious, who here is making music or recording music, part of music somehow professionally or semi-professionally? That's like most of you. That's incredible. The reason I say so is because to actually make money, like to actually really genuinely make one real dollar towards your investment of time and gear and all that, it's a big deal. And I'm not making light of it. I realize that you are a very pre-selected crowd, so to speak. But to actually do that is an incredible thing. And so I'm curious as to...
They said they were doing it professionally. They didn't say they were making money.
Fair enough. That's true. I'm not sure what you were getting in exchange. I mean, Richard works for chips and a can of Coke, so you guys might be as well. What is your... I want to hear from some of you. So you've heard from guys who are doing this day in, day out, have had long histories in doing this. Any disagreements with what they're saying? Obviously it's easy to agree with what they're saying because they're experts, but I suspect some of you are going, screw that. I can use a $100 program and a cheap laptop and I can get what I want. I'm not saying that's what we're not saying, but I want to hear from you. Who's...
2 words, Robert Johnson. All the old Robert Johnson recordings were done on wire recorders, right? Mm-hmm. And they just sound phenomenal. All you have to say is George Martin did the Beatles stuff on a 4-track, right?
Yeah, I argue that one all the time.
There's,
a 4-track, operated by 8 guys in lab coats.
Yes. I have a Tube 47. I have a Tube 47 mic, serial number 88. It's from 1953. Nice. And I will guarantee you, if you try and put any other microphone up to this thing, no bueno. I do nothing to it. Plug it in, say you want to sing, plug in and just go sing. Don't have to do anything to it. Capsule, everything is mint because it's the right tool for the right job. Do you know what I mean? Because when you have a great performance, you probably want to have, well, if you've ever read any of the books about making of Beatles records, look at some of the pictures and just see what they're using and you go, oh, crap, look at these mics. Like, a lot of the stuff is, when you listen to the vocal performances and stuff, great songwriters, great, good performances. Whether you're a fan or not but, you look at it for what it is, and man, they had some pretty intense tools. Track limitations, yep. track limitations, but
Genius. That was the main input there was genius. And don't forget that the Beatles were a crappy band in the late 50s. They really were. They were crappy bands. Anyone read Outliers? No? Well, you know, they went to Hamburg and played for months and months at a time. They were hired into a strip club. And they played 8-hour sets, continuous playing, 7 days a week, for months and months. They had played more than 1,200 gigs together by the time they came in '64 to America. So how many gigs have you guys played? You know, or how many gigs do you know other people that have played? I doubt very many have played more than 300. Well, Rush maybe, but...
but that was just in one night.
Yeah. So, you know, there is that mythical 10,000 hour thing, which I firmly believe in. And the psychologists say, I don't know which one it is, it says that, but they say that there's two kinds of creators. And one of them is the creator that has a concept, and they express that concept. And we know them, we've worked with them. Bowie, Leonard Cohen, Rush, even April Wine, the list goes on, Madonna. They have a concept and they express that concept, and it's a clear concept and they go for it. And it's great. And then there's the ones that try experimenting. And they'll try a little bit of this, and then they'll try a little bit of that, and then they'll try a little bit of this, and they try a little bit of that. And finally they get up to being a little bit older, and they've put in their 10,000 hours, which is about 10 years, 4 hours a day. And all of a sudden they find it, and then they express it, and they're great, but they're not instant genius. They're the hard-working kind who get up there and make something really good. And the Beatles were instant genius. Yes, there are geniuses in there, but it didn't come out. It's kind of like Bobby Fischer, you know, or great grand chess masters. There's not a grandmaster in chess out there that has become a grandmaster in less than 10 years of practicing, other than Bobby Fischer. He did it in 9 years.
But look what it cost him.
Yeah, and you know, you can talk about Mozart. Mozart, you know, child prodigy at 11, right? But he actually didn't do anything till he was 22 of any significance. Yeah, there's stuff out there, but it sucks, most of it. But when you get to Concerto Number 9, 271, that is his definitive masterpiece. And from there, he went on and did a bunch of great stuff. So you need the talent, you need the perseverance, you need the experience. And the geniuses, good luck. If there's any geniuses in the crowd, I don't want to put you down because you're great. And I'd love to work with you. 647-868. Yeah, wait. But it's the hard workers, the people who apply their talent, whatever talent they have, and continue to work at it. Robert Johnson, sure. Who cares what it's recorded on? You record it on toilet tissue. It's going to be great.
I have a question, if you don't mind. The whole notion of MP3s were brought up recently, and I'm sure we've all seen the phenomenon of kids walking down the street where each kid's got one earbud. Do any of you, when you're mixing, have the ability or the tool in place to allow you to monitor through a process that would mimic to a degree the complete and utter sonic degradation that can happen on a super low bitrate MP3? And also, are you hitting the mono button more to perhaps take into account the kids where each one has got half the stereo field because they each have an earbud?
Well, I can give the short answer. No.
Okay.
In the old days, we used to actually create an AM station, and we used to broadcast it to the car outside the studio.
Run with the cassette in
Yeah,
the car and do that as
but
pressure?
no, because what I do is class stuff. I don't do stuff that class stuff sounds elitist. What I do is
Heavens, a Yale man.
yes. What I do is stuff where people really care about the sound and want to produce the best possible sound that they can, and that's why they hire me, because they think I can do that. I fool them so far, so it's great because they pay me for it. So that's wonderful. I don't create hits like some of these guys do, and so maybe they do that. But my short answer is getting long, isn't it? But no, yeah, I listen in headphones because headphones are a way of life. But I don't believe in earbuds. First of all, it's horrible. Kids are going deaf really quickly. We got to turn it down. We got to get rid of this compression. The loudness wars are killing us. Dynamic is 50% of music. The notes and the dynamic is, they're 50-50. You don't have dynamics, you don't have emotion as far as I'm concerned. And certain styles of music is really great. I mean, I listen to certain artists that I think are fantastic, and there's not a lot of dynamics on it, and they're doing their expression in the way they want to do it, and that's great, but not everyone should be doing that. Not all the stuff coming out of Nashville should be pinned in the meters. And I'm sorry, I'm going to continue on because I went to an AES recently where Bruce Sudian was on a panel like this. Before that, they were playing all kinds of music. They played a little Coldplay, they played some David Bowie, they played some Pink Floyd. It sounded great, it was huge. As we all know, Pink Floyd sounds huge. They played some Def Leppard, they played some country stuff because Tony Brown was on the panel and it sounded okay. And then they played a recording by Bruce Sudian. Michael Jackson, you say? No. Count Basie Band, 1959. Wow. The first production by Quincy of the Count Basie Band and the first recording that they actually did together. It was huge. I mean, huge. It blew away every modern recording that had been put up, including Michael Jackson and Pink Floyd. And certainly blew away Coldplay and Def Leppard and Shania Twain and Nickelback? No. Same producer, all those. So anyway, it just was huge. And he had like a dozen microphones and 2 tracks.
I'll take it from here. Yeah, I don't listen to stuff I don't reference MP3. Somebody asked me that the other day whether I go and actually do another mix for MP3. And that I refuse to do. I'm just sorry, man. It's only so far I'm going. But I do reference a mono. And that's actually saved me a bunch of times because sometimes, you're kind of in the heat of things, you're mixing really fast and won't realize that something's out of phase and then pop it in mono, where'd it go? And it'll disappear on you. So monos, I live and die sometimes by mono. But with the loudness thing, I've been guilty of it. And I know anybody that's seen through my work, sometimes I've been pretty guilty sometimes of slamming that thing really hard. It's just sometimes the records I work on, that's what they want, and they're just like, I need it loud. For my genre that I work in, predominantly a lot of people just want it louder and louder. And sometimes I'm amazed at how loud they want it because I'm just like, dude, I got like 4 L3s on there. You got to be kidding me. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like really, really loud at this point. And, it sucks. I've been critiqued by a lot of people about it, and it's like, never actually spoke about it, but in my defense, I make records and I try to make the best possible records I can do. When it's my record, no one can tell me anything. When I'm the producer and I'm working on my records, it's like, look, I'm turning in what I think is best. But when you're in an atmosphere, when you have other super producers, superstar artists, it's like, all right, buddy, I'm like 3rd in the pecking order here. And, sometimes you got to default. And, I definitely am vocal about it, but it's what it is. And I've tried over the years to cut back on a lot of the stuff I do, but, when it goes to mastering, they have the mastering guy shove it right back up. So it's unfortunate that's where it is because it does kill a lot of records. And, you go back and listen to a Foreigner record, it's just like, whoa. Anybody that knows me knows that I apprenticed under Jimmy Douglas before I went, and Jimmy would come in and be like, look at this shit. They're taking my mix, and look what it sounded like. This is what I do. And you come in here and play Foreigner, you're like, whoa, It's funny, my guitar player, Dan Warner, he did a Spanish record with another good buddy of mine. They had Bob Clearmountain mix it, and he said he walked into Bob's studio, and Bob has like a little sign. He says, all my hard work is going down these shitty MP3s, And it's a testament. It's just like, that's just what they're doing. I won't listen to that, but, Timbaland will go and put it on his iPod, and it's like, he won't even take CDs anymore, and I'm just like, what can you do?
iPods play waves.
Oh, no, but he wants MP3.
I know.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so.
To answer your question, yes to the mono button, no to MP3. As far as me referencing from an MP3, don't bother. I do reference through a Dolby encode and decode when doing surround. There's an element of degradation that happens, but most importantly, it's the way the sound field changes. So I compensate for that because that never gets played in a linear, in a PCM format. That's always encoded and decoded. So in that case, I'll listen to an encode and decode.
I have found that the biggest transition for me, technically, when hearing something is actually when it goes to CD. So, because we often work at just 24/48, and when it's down into 16/44 and actually on a disc and coming out of a CD player, it sounds completely different to me. And so, I've the mono button for sure, but that's been my biggest thing is I actually want to hear what it sounds like on a disc, even though I think I might be one of 3 people who actually put in silver discs into a machine and play it back. But it's been that's been the most dramatic thing for me because I'm so used to MP3s, but I'm not used to 1644 CDs anymore. I'm either used to the 24-bit session or the 192 MP3.
Well, it's a 30-year-old technology. Let's get rid of that crap.
Fair enough.
Let's move on. And as to whatever it's going to be, the new technologies. Does anybody know what the new technology is going to be? Well,
No, that's fair. That's fair, dude.
I think he's right. Not only is it fair, I think he's
said
right. YouTube, but a higher bit rate.
That's what's happening.
Yeah,
So
well,
you-
this
so
all
that
going
you
to
can
so-called
stream.
HD. But
So, is Blu-ray the way to go? Well, what are all these people going to do that did 44/116 that are recorded at that? Blu-ray doesn't take that. I mean, it won't play it. It's 24, 48, 96, 192. So people had archived. I mean, all my stuff is archived in 96, as soon as 96 was available, and 48. And way back in the late 80s, I was doing 20-bit stuff. But because it's all archived like that, so the record company can then bring it out. Record company, yeah, that's an anachronism, isn't it? But the record company can bring it out on whatever new media. But I think it's going to be streamed. I think it's the cloud computing that's going to do it. It's going to be up in the sky, and you're just going to do it on demand. I hope to God it's not going to be like satellite, because satellite's bad AM radio. But we have to train the consumers. We have to retrain the consumers, and frankly, somebody should talk to Steve Jobs and get him ramped up about it. They should stop selling MP3s. That would do it. They're the biggest retail seller of music in the world. If they stop selling MP3s and start putting out just a higher quality, and AAC obviously, but Apple lossless actually sounds pretty good. FLAC would be good, but apparently it's not compatible technology-wise. But it's still big files, FLAC. But we need the pipes out there. So we're at the mercy of the telecommunication industry, really.
It's the line of consumption and mass consumption, right? When I was a kid and I would see people with amazing stereos, those things were an arm and a leg in, if it's like 5 or 10 grand at that time, that was huge money, right? Well, they would be able to appreciate the sonics of the work that was being done at the time. My folks had had one of those record players. You play it 5 times and it sort of ground through the record. The 12-gram cartridge sort of thing. That's what they had, and it was okay for them. So they could play the same record and not realize any of the sonics. They would just go, "Oh, I like the tune. I like the melody," and for them, it's okay. Mass consumers don't care. They're getting what they want out of it, and you know what? As people that make music, it's okay, but you still do a good job.
And people, as I see, when I play an MP3 file and then bring it up to Wave, the kids are going, "Oh yeah. I get it. I get it now. I get it." It's the same thing with my daughter, who was listening to cassette and even CDs. And one day I put on the turntable and put a record on. She said, "What's that?" I said, "Well, that's the Eagles." And she says, "Wow, that's great. It sounds much better than the other stuff." 13 years old. What does she know? Knows nothing. Tone deaf. She's tone deaf.
It's funny. It's kind of just dawned on me. Napster was roughly 10 years ago?
Yeah.
So it's still relevantly new
Yep.
to everyone. I think what's going to happen is eventually, just like anything, people are just going to get tired of it. Because you just are. You're just going to hear it and you're going to be like, okay, well, what? People always want more. As human beings, we generally always try and we go for more. So at some point, somebody's going to go you know what? I need something more. This just isn't working. You know what I'm saying? These headphones just don't sound right. This doesn't sound right. And it's gonna come around. It has to. Everything always goes around one way or another, and it's gonna come around. That's why it's a dying, it's a dying art form, engineering. But we'll have our golden age again. There'll be a time when people will be like, you know what? They'll actually want to do. They'll want to know that. They want to know how to make records like that. And they'll be like, they'll get tired of sitting behind a keyboard and mouse. Or what happens is one of those guys will go out there and actually get a real experience with a real band. Might get something. He'll be like, yo, you gotta check this out. This is like, what I'm saying? It's like they just found something. This is amazing. First time they had cotton candy. It's like. Yo, you got to see this, and then everybody else will follow. It'll go around. Yeah. The question is whether we're going to sit around and wait for it to go around.
There's a really popular music store in Toronto, Queen's Spadina. They're huge for indie and the cool kids and all that. They've ceased selling CDs because the vinyl now in the last year has been outselling CDs 3-1. It's exactly what everyone's saying because there are so many options. Kids are smart enough to kind of know, I want to get into a band. I want to see the art bigger. I want to feel the paper they've chosen. I want to interact a little bit with my music. And I can also download it. But they're, so they're probably getting it for free, or a lot of the vinyl now are coming with download codes. But it's that idea that they want to experience in a tactile way as much of the music as they can. I was shocked. Sir?
Is there any hope that tape will ever make a comeback?
Well, tape is still there. I think you said you were using.
Yeah,
and,
still
and with
yeah.
the clasp system now that's come out of Nashville, and I've forgotten the name of the guy who's done it, but I've talked to Chuck Ainley, who's a famous engineer, and he's using it. He swears by it. What's the name of the guy who developed it? Chris Eske's right, new producer, and that integrates tape right into the DAW, so you're actually using a 24-track. Studer or whatever you want to put up there, and it's $8,000 plus this machine, and you got to buy tape and you got to tweak it and line it and all that stuff. But again, that's part of the commitment towards getting good sounds, and we always have assistants that do that anyway, right?
For sure. I haven't calibrated a machine in a while.
So
My assistant's fantastic at it, though. Man.
Any successful movement started when people who had an idea, who thought they were alone, realized that others were thinking alike, and they came together. And there's been some great ideas here tonight, and don't give up.
Oh, for sure.
that is probably a perfect way to end our evening. So thank you very, very much for all of your time. I want to thank Beatty and Don from SSL, and Dave and Norman from HHD, and of course our friends from Imprint for allowing us the time and the space. And thank you again to all of you for making the time. And to my friends on the table here. Thanks, guys.